Hello, this is James Himm Mitchell, and we are back with another weekly Lenormand and Tarot Tag-Team reading. Because of such wonderful response that the deck I used in last week's reading got, I'm going to use it again. So if you're checking this out for the first time, the deck that we're using for the Lenormand part of the tag team is the Unforgettable Lenormand. It's by Teri Smith over at Divine Walks, and like I did in last week's video, I will post a link to both the video, which showcases all the cards, as well as her site, in the description box below. So for the tag team, I always do a line of 3. So the Lenormand part will be 3 Lenormand cards, and then in the second part of the video, which will be the Tarot's take on this week's events, will also consist of 3 cards. So having said that, we're going to jump right in. I've taken the liberty of shuffling the cards, cutting the deck, fanning the deck, and picking the 3 cards, and here they are. And so I always start the line of 3 with the card in the middle because that represents the central issue or the focus for the week. And the card we have is the dog. And if you notice, those of you who looked at last week's video, the dog was in the last position of last week's video, and so now the dog has taken center stage this week. So this week's focus is on 1 or 2 things. The dog can represent a friend or a friendship, a partner or a partnership, or a companion. For me, the dog also represents attributes like being helpful and supportive, and issues regarding trust and being trustworthy. So this could be approached 1 or 2 ways. Either the card could be talking about an actual friend, meaning another person close to us who is a friend, a partner, or companionship, or how can we be more friendly towards other people, because I tend to look at cards as aspects of another person or ourselves. And in light of the ourselves part of this, it could be how can we be more helpful and supportive to other people this week. So again, the dog represents a friend, a partner, a companion, can also represent help, trust, and support. And so now to get more information as to what the central focus could mean, more specifically, we look to the outer cards. So on the left we have the ship, and on the right we have the mice. Okay, so going with the ship first. The ship for me is a card of progression, advancement, and moving forward. And so as you know, if you've followed my videos for a while now, Lenormand is best read in pairs and triplets. So we actually have 3 pairs. So this is the first of the 3 pairs. So we have the ship and the dog. So the ship and the dog can represent, I'm seeing them as the progression, going with the ship, of a friendship or a partnership. Here's one for me, navigating, going with the ship, a friendship. The ship can also be a card of actual travel, because Lenormand can be quite literal, so this card is a card of travel and transport or transportation. So going with the travel aspect, it could be an actual travel with a friend, or a trip with a friend, or a trip with a partner or a companion. And then the last one could be maybe either help or support, going with the dog, overseas, because the ship can also represent, you know, things like overseas, something foreign, something abroad. So I'm seeing those aspects as potential meanings for the pair of the ship and the dog. On the other side of the dog, we have the mice. So the mice for me can represent stress and worry. The mice typically represent something that is eating away at us or gnawing away at us. It can also represent loss, but it's loss that is gradual, because mice literally nibble at things, so it wouldn't be like a huge loss. It would be something that is either eroding or decaying over time. So those are my meanings for the mice. So the second pair we have in the reading is dog and mice. So that could be read as the possibility of a loss, going with the mice, of a friendship or partnership with the dog. It could also represent a loss of trust, keeping in mind that I said that the dog can represent trust and being trustworthy. So a loss of trust. And again, having said that, it wouldn't be like a sudden loss of trust or help or support. It would be something that, you know, we've experienced gradually, like we could see it over time. And, you know, and then the other one I said, you know, help and support. So the other pair could be loss of help or support. So again, that's what I'm seeing with the pair of the dog and the mice. So then our final pair would be the ship and the mice. So that could be read, if I move the dog out like that and put them closer, that could be read as the stress of travel, being worried about a trip. Now this is one that pops into my head in light of an experience that I had some time ago. I mean, this is a long time ago, so it's not anything recent, but the mice can represent something that's been taken away from us. So that could be theft or something being stolen. And if you look at the ship as literal transportation, well, one of those things that we literally use as transportation would be a car. So for me, I did actually have a car stolen, so I saw this as stolen transportation. So, you know, that's an extreme, and I'm hoping that no one watching this video experiences that, but it could be like stolen transportation. I'm seeing that. And then the last thing, I sometimes see the ship as, you know, an actual shipment, and so it could be like a lost shipment. So I'm seeing those with that pair. So again, so the next thing we can do is we could look at the line to see what does the line form in terms of a message. As those of you who read Lenormand know, that each card forms a keyword in the overall sentence, which would be the 3 cards in combination. So looking at this, one of the things that I could see would be the progression, going with the ship, of a friendship, going with the dog, that becomes stressful, going with the mice. Another one, because I don't just do one, another one could be navigating with the ship, a friendship with the dog, that becomes stressful, going with the mice. And here's another one. Sometimes the ship can represent a venture. So I see this as a venture, going with the ship, with a partner. And this could be, I'm looking at this in terms of like if the venture is something of a business nature, then this pairing would be more like a business partnership. So the dog would be a partner that experiences a decline, which would be the mice. So those are 3 different possibilities. One may resonate with you more than the other. So, but this is how a general reading when I use Lenormand goes. Everyone who's watching this is going to be at a different place in life, in their life journey. The ship represents a life journey. So kind of just take what's being said and apply it to your life as you are experiencing it right now. So having said this, so now the next thing I usually do is move to the pips, which are the playing card inserts on each card. And one of the things that I do is I use a technique called the hidden dynamics, and I normally use it with a line of 5, but we can do it with a line of 3. And so we'll look to what, going with the focus being the dog, and it could either be a friendship, a partnership, either help, trust, or support, going with those as potential meanings for the focus. Then the card here on the ship is the 10 of spades. So the 10th card in the Lenormand deck is the scythe. And so the scythe can represent risk or injury. So if I go with that, it could be running the risk of either being hurt or hurting a friendship or a partnership. Another aspect of the scythe could be something that happens suddenly, quickly, or abruptly. So, you know, another thing, because the scythe is a tool that cuts things off, it removes things. So going with that, it could be like suddenly or abruptly being cut off or cut out of a friendship or a partnership. And then the last thing the scythe can represent is some form of division, because it literally cuts things in half. So it could be like there's a division in a friendship or a division in a partnership, something like that. So that's one way of looking at that in terms of one side of the dynamic. Then on this side with the mice, we have the 7 of clubs. So the 7th card in the deck is the snake. And so the snake can be read one or two ways. The snake can be considered a challenging card, but I know that some people who read the Lenormand see it in a positive sense. So I'm going to actually look at both aspects. The snake can represent betrayal and being lied to. So since the dog is facing the snake, it could be the effects, or like the friend sees him or herself as being betrayed or having been lied to, and going with that. If it is an issue about being lied to, then it goes back to the central focus of not just a friendship or partnership, but a trust issue, because I said the dog can represent trust. And then going back with that on the other side with the scythe, then that could be the thing that creates the division, with some sort of betrayal, and also that betrayal is a very painful thing. So that could be another aspect of the scythe. So betrayal or being lied to. In a softer sense, if I was to soften that, then the snake could represent, just the basic miscommunication and misunderstanding that needs to be cleared up, So that's another way of looking at that. That's a softer approach, and I don't know if most people would ascribe that to the snake, but I tend to, the extreme would be being betrayed or lied to, and then how can we soften that? Because maybe it's just a misunderstanding, a miscommunication. The other thing about the snake for me, the snake can represent complication. So going with this aspect, going back to the dog facing the snake, it could be like a friend is facing some form of complication, and as a result, maybe reaching out to us for help or support. So it could be like, you experience a friend who's going through a difficult time, a complicated thing, and that you offer some help or support. So I'm seeing that. Now, the other side of the snake that I sometimes see other people describe it to as something that's healing. So if you go with the idea that the scythe on the one side of the dog represents pain or injury, and it could also represent too like some surgery, because the scythe can represent a surgical instrument. So let's go with some of those. So if it represents pain or injury, then the snake could represent healing that pain and injury, that wound, that hurt. Because in this sense, the snake is connected to things like Kundalini, which is a healing energy. Also, too, the snake is transformation. So it could be a transformative process, and that would be like, I always see like the snake shedding its skin or molting. So that would be some process of transformation. So it could be like if the person, since I mentioned surgery, if a person is watching this and they are experiencing some surgery that they may be healing and recovering from, they may need some help or support through their healing process. So I'm seeing that as part of that. So again, it could be like the healing of a complicated process. Because it would be nice if the healing was quick, going with the scythe, but sometimes it could be complicated. It could be very long, involved, and lots of entanglements. So I'm seeing that as possibilities for the hidden dynamics. So another thing we can do, still keeping with the idea of using the playing cards, is that we can add all the playing cards together and to create a sum. So the first thing that I notice before I do that is that we have the 10 of spades and we have the 10 of hearts with the dog. Two tens in a reading, represents a pattern that can either represent a guiding influence or some form of a connection. So there could be an issue regarding some connection or some sort of guiding influence. The fact that the 10 of spades is black and the 10 of hearts is red can indicate some form of delay, because it would show a challenge when there's two cards with the same number but two different colors. So I'm seeing some sort of delay with that. So if we take the numbers on all the cards and add them together, we have a 10 and a 10 and a 7. That gives us a total of 27. And so the 27th card in the deck is the letter. And so the letter is a card of news and messages. So here we have communication, but it's in a written form. This card is about written correspondence. So it could be, we might need to consider, any mail that we receive, any emails that we receive, any texts that we receive, because those would all be things we have to look at because they're printed. So that could also create a sense of miscommunication and misunderstanding. Going back with what I said about the snake, because sometimes, especially with email and text, it can be read in a way that it wasn't intended if the person had actually spoken the words that are on the paper or on the text or on the screen. So that could create a whole sense of like, we need to work this out because they don't understand the message or the implication of the message. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. But the letter is about news or messages. Could be something that's on paper, something that's being documented, because it could represent documents. So keep that in mind this week. And then the final thing we can do, and I always touch on this, is because the Lenormand cards have 3 features. It has a central image, it has the playing card insert, and then it has a number that's assigned to it. So this technique is about creating the essence. What's the bottom line here? So take the numbers. So the ship is 3, and then the dog is 18, and the mice is 23, and we add them together, and we get a total of 44. So now there are only 36 cards in the deck. So what I do in this case, when the number's over 36, I take the 2 digits and I add them together. So 4 and 4 is 8. And so then the 8th card in the deck is the coffin. So now the coffin can represent something coming to an end, something being completed. It can represent limitation or restriction. What I like about this image is the standard image is typically you actually see a coffin. But this is actually pallbearers carrying a person to laying the person to rest. So it could be figuratively speaking, like, what issue do we need to put to rest or put to bed this week? You know, the other thing about the coffin, I see it as closure. So if we go with the idea that the scythe represents some sort of hurt, pain, wound, or injury, then how can we bring that to some form of closure? So with going with the mice, so that it's no longer eating away at us. It's no longer bothering us. It's no longer something that we have to be worried or stressed out about. So I'm seeing that with the coffin. The coffin is about, you know, what do we need to put to an end? What can we put to rest or to bed? You know, what can we bring to closure? And if you happen to be watching this and you just happen to experience surgery, then this could actually be you actually needing physical rest and making sure that you do that so that you can help your body recover. Because surgery is actually a shocking thing for the body to experience, the idea of it being cut open for whatever reason. That can be traumatic, and so the body needs the rest to fully recover. So I'm seeing that. So again, the cards for the week, the ship can represent actual travel, but I see it as progression, advancement, and moving forward and navigating through the week. The dog being the central issue or the focus could be either, you know, an actual friend, partner, companionship to us. Maybe we need to reach out and get some help or support. And going with that, the other side of that is how can we be helpful and supportive to other people this week? And also to, how can we either consider being more trusting or trustworthy this week as well. And then the mice, wrapping things up, is about issues dealing with stress and worry and loss, but a gradual loss. And if so, what can we do to reduce that, to minimize that, to eliminate it? So this has been the Lenormand, portion of the tag team reading for the week. And so now in the next video, we're going to shift gears and look to see what the tarot has to say about all of this. So stay tuned.